Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining this informative In the Office webinar today. We're going to be touching on mobile challenges facing businesses and what solutions are now available for you, and that includes building solid connections with your target audience via mobile. My name is Brian Ketz of OnStream Media. We're a leading provider of audio and video communication technologies, and I will be your moderator today. OnStream Media is pleased to produce and to moderate today's discussion in partnership with Compro.biz. Today I'm joined by our esteemed guests, Karen Jacobsen, better known as the GPS Girl, and Jeff Corbin, founder and Chief Executive Officer of theCOMMSapp. Karen, I'll introduce you first, and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Better known as the GPS Girl, Karen Jacobsen's speaking voice is in over 100 million GPS units, giving drivers directions worldwide, better known as Australian Karen. If you've got an iPhone and you use the Siri application, you may already be familiar with Karen's speaking voice, as she is the Australian Siri voice in 240 million iPhones around the world. A recent TEDx speaker, she has appeared on ABC's World News Tonight, in the New York Times, the New York Daily News, Glamour magazine, and was named one of People's Magazine's most intriguing people in 2010. Karen shared the stage with Norah Jones and Christopher Cross and has performed the Star-Spangled Banner at many major sporting events, including the New York Jets game at Giant Stadium to a crowd of 80,000 people. The GPS Girl speaks, writes, and sings for groups who want to inspire the best in their people and create a roadmap for their future. Now New York-based, the GPS Girl gives directions for putting yourself in the driver's seat. Her book, The GPS Girl's Roadmap for Your Future, shows how to move from the passenger seat over to the driver's seat, to learn to listen to your inner GPS, and to recalculate at any time in life, just as we do when we're driving. Now I've got the pleasure of introducing to you Jeff Corbin. Jeff, good day to you.
Hey, how are you, Brian?
Good. Thank you very much. As a public and investor relations consultant for the past 15 years, Jeff Corbin is pioneering the use of technology in the communications industry as the founder of theCOMMSapp, a family of communication app building solutions that include the IR app for public companies and the Employee app, a secure employee communications mobile portal for internal communications. As the CEO of KCSA Strategic Communications, Jeff has consulted with hundreds of private organizations, as well as NASDAQ and NYSE-listed companies. Through his experience, he understands how organizations need to communicate to reach their target audiences, how these audiences now consume information and want to be communicated with, as well as the importance of 21st century technology to facilitate the direct connection between both company and target audience. This has guided the development of the CommSapp technology platform. Jeff is the author of Investor Relations, The Art of Communicating Value. He's regularly quoted in the media on the subject of investor relations and social media, as well as on mobility and communications. He has been published in the Wall Street Journal, Market Watch, Fortune, IR Magazine, PR Week, and Social Media Today, and has also appeared on CNBC, Bloomberg TV, and Canada's Business News Week. Jeff is a licensed attorney, and before joining KCSA, practiced securities and bankruptcy law in New York City. Jeff holds a bachelor's degree from Cornell University and a law degree from the Benjamin N. Cardozo School of Law. You can follow and connect with Jeff on Twitter at jeffjcorbin.ir. Let me say that again, on Twitter at jcorbinir. Before we get started here today, let me just take care of a few housekeeping items, if I could, please. If you would like to submit a question to either one of our guests today, or if you have a comment at any time during the course of the webcast, all you need to do is click on the Ask a Question button, which is located at the bottom of your screen. Just simply type in the question into that box area and then click on the Submit button. Questions will be fielded at the end of our conversation today. You can also tweet your questions to us by using hashtag #OfficeOneOnOne. That's Office, the number 1 on the number 1. And so, Jeff, Karen, if we're all set, let's get started.
Okay.
Karen, let me direct this first question to you. I mean, it's certainly no big surprise. We're living in a mobile world today. There's countless studies that are showing the increase in content consumption is all being done via mobile devices. What advice could you give a marketing communications professional who's interested to find the right direction as either he or she starts to build their 2014 plan? What are the trends that you're kind of seeing out there right now?
Well, Brian, I think that the first most important point here is to have a plan, which might sound fundamental, but this area is so large in scope and increasing so rapidly, and I think that it can be very overwhelming to think about where to start and how to continue to develop. But taking the time to have a plan, not getting too caught up in the detail, but having a beginning plan to roll out, knowing that you're not married to that plan and that you can, as I would say, recalculate at any time. I think that really gives a lot of freedom to know that you're going to course correct as you go. The technological landscape out there is changing as quickly as we are breathing on a moment-to-moment basis. So to know that you are not married to the plan, but you can make small changes on a daily basis if necessary, but without knowing the outcome and what you want to achieve with your mobile marketing strategy, it's a problem. I think you really need to have the plan.
Yeah, well, this is Jeff, obviously, because I don't have the same kind of voice as Karen, and I hope I don't sound as pretty as she sounds. First, it's an honor to be here chatting with Karen. I couldn't agree more about the importance of a plan. As a communications consultant, because yes, I'm here today talking, on behalf of the theCOMMSapp and our technology communications platform, app building platform, but the basis for the development of our platform comes from the experience that me and my colleagues have had over the past 15 years in corporate communications. So, to understand the importance, one, of having a plan, what is that, what exactly does that mean? Well, this is going to be kind of fundamental in PR 101, but, obviously having an objective first as to what you're trying to accomplish. To the extent that we're here today to talk about mobile communication strategy, well, that's well and fine, but why? What is it that and how is it that a mobile communication strategy can really further a cause for an organization? I would suggest is, as a starting point for deciding what those strategies might be and the objective, it's, who is the audience that you're really looking to target, and that's really one of the great things and the incredible things that's transforming the communications industry today, and that is the power of mobile as a means to directly communicate with a target audience. Never before, at least since I've been in the communications industry, which was in the mid-1990s when I started, I mean, the thought of being able to send content, to push content directly into the pocket of an individual who I want to communicate with. That wasn't even, we had to go kind of work around that to make that happen. But now we have a direct channel to our target audience. So it's really a remarkable time that we're living in. Karen and I were chatting about some of the key statistics that are out there. You kind of, Karen being Australian, I hope I'm not being offensive here, you kind of have to have your head in the sand to not recognize what's going on with mobile. 50% of the workforce here in the U.S. isn't tied to a desktop. One of the reasons there was some research that just came out of Gartner. 197 million tablets were shipped in 2013. That's a huge number. There's more than 1 billion smartphones, and this always blows my mind. According to Gartner, there are more connected mobile devices on Earth than there are people.
Yeah, we were saying this whole area of mobile marketing, it's not going away. It's only going to increase.
Exactly. I mean, it's expected that the number of connected mobile devices can be 5 times higher in 2020 than they are today. Since Apple launched the iPhone in 2007, there are more than 100 billion apps. So this app thing, it's an interesting phenomena, and how can the communications industry really take advantage of apps? That's something that I think we'll want to chat about today, and certainly are willing and happy to take any questions that you all that are participating today have.
Are we recouching the next question?
Did I just digress for a little bit?
That's okay.
Okay.
Jeff, you started to touch on this a little bit, so let me follow up. There's companies out there that are starting to think about creating a mobile strategy right now, but they're unsure, where do I start, what's involved. How does a company go about creating a mobile communication strategy, and particularly if you're dealing with a limited budget?
Right, so, as I was mentioning before, understanding what the objective is, why do you even need a mobile strategy? And then identifying the audience, the target audience that you're looking to communicate with. So, just a few examples. Investors. So our platform originally was conceived with the investor relations industry in mind. So the connection between in public company and investor. So what might a mobile strategy be in that regard? Well, there's various mobile strategies. Some companies might want to use mobile as a addition to how they're accomplishing financial disclosure. Some might want to use mobile for purposes of making the life of their analysts and their investors easier. And for good reason, because you go to events, everyone has a mobile device, so by making content available to the investor via the mobile device, you're making their life easier. What about the fact that, maybe mobile can be used as a strategy to increase a shareholder base? So, these are different reasons for adopting a mobile strategy. I can think of, our platform now has morphed into more of a general corporate communications platform. So, organizations like universities, that want to reach out directly to their alumni. Mobile provides them with a great way to push content to their alumni base as a means to, one, showcase what's going on in the university and the school, but also for purposes of fundraising and soliciting donations. Customers, the ability to have a direct connection and to be able to market directly through the mobile device to a end user of a product or a service. And then one of the things where we're really excited is if you think about employee communication, it's something that Karen and I were chatting about. There's a challenge in internal communications, and that is the majority, according to a recent research survey that was done by the Gallup organization, showed that a huge percentage of the workforce is disengaged today, and that's in large part due to the fact that employees are dispersed all around the country. They're not necessarily tied to their desktop. They're not sitting, they're in trucks, they're in airplanes, they're in the field, they're in warehouses, and they're just not engaged. So mobile offers a great opportunity to establish a direct communication with your employees, but also to engage with them.
And I think the point that I want to really remind us all about is mobile technology, all of the incredible resources that we have access to now are only to support the connection between human beings and the real in-person relationships between human beings, and I think we forget that. I think we're thinking on a very, on a numbers level, on a technology level, but it is not an either-or. This is not instead of having personal connection. This is to enhance personal connection. And I think that that's such an important piece to remember. And when you talk about workforces across the country working as mobile and independent workers for a corporation, mobile gives the opportunity, and these applications give the opportunity to connect people in a really meaningful way. And when you have employees who are connected, who are satisfied and feel a part of a community, you are much less likely to have it increases your employee retention for a start. And a very satisfied employee is going to be a productive employee, and we know how that affects the bottom line. So we're talking about, real results.
Right. I mean, and the Gallup survey that I referenced before, they talk about the fact that millions upon millions of dollars are lost every year because of disengaged
right.
workforce.
Right.
So to the extent that there is a way, and Brian, you had asked a question about costs, well, that's definitely an issue, and that's a factor that has to be considered. To the extent that you realize that mobile is a strategy that you want to embrace, well, then the question is, how do you do it in a way that either you have budget for, or that you're not in fear of going to your CFO and requesting budget? And there's a lot of solutions that are out there today that can allow for it. There's also the issue of, to what extent do you want to go and deal with your IT department and security people, because clearly those are issues that come up as well.
Jeff, let's expand on that a little bit, if we could, please. You referenced the Gartner report, and there's some interesting figures there. Just alone in 2014, they're expecting a 7.6% increase in shipment of mobile devices, up to 2.5 billion units. How is this going to affect the enterprise, and how are businesses going to become more mobile in the coming year?
One of the things I've been saying is that I don't believe that mobile will render the desktop and desktop computing obsolete at any given point in time, but based on the statistics you just referenced, Brian, there's no question that the desktop and desktop computing is going to be less relevant in the years to come. I mean, Gartner in that report says that 80% of businesses are expected to support a workforce using tablets by the end of this year. 80%. So, I don't think it's something that we have a choice but to consider. So, it's a question of how you go about it, and that's the challenge. There's a lot of organizations that are now starting to have that conversation. Mobile communication strategy, mobile strategy is certainly the buzzword. But now it's let's get down to brass tactics and figure out how we implement a strategy. There's various ways to go about it. There's mobile apps. There's responsive design, optimized websites that are a very, very good solution for taking what you currently have available content-wise via desktop computing it and making it accessible through the mobile device. There are going to be drawbacks to that, and that's where a native app can be very, very helpful. There's drawbacks to native apps. One is expense, unless you have a solution like the theCOMMSapp that's not as that's priced the right way. And I don't want to get into my selling proposition. I'll talk to you all. No, I'm not going to. I promise. I promise that we wouldn't do this today. But no, seriously, the important thing is to identify. Do you have budget? How much time do you want to put into the effort of establishing a mobile presence and then implementing it? One of the things that I've been doing a lot of reading about this. One of the things that I think is important that's important for every organization to keep in mind is that you shouldn't be developing a mobile strategy in a vacuum, but rather, you should find out from your employees if it's an internal communications or an employee communication solution that you're looking to put into place. What do your employees want? What do they need? Because if they're not going to use it and it's not going to help them, then it's kind of a waste.
I think it's so great, Jeff, to hear you talking about really simple solutions for people. But what I wanted to say is that when you talk about the reduction in desktops and the increase in tablets by the end of this year, which is like right now, it makes me think that really instead of talking about mobile marketing as a separate topic, to marketing, what we're really talking about is a mobile mindset in terms of all our marketing, because that's what we're dealing with. A desktop versus a tablet versus a phone, I don't think that really needs to even exist anymore. I think it's a mobile mindset across the board. We're all mobile. Statistically, 50% of workers aren't tied to a desk. That's at least half of the workforce is mobile.
Exactly. And there's actually a phrase that's starting to be bantered about more and more, and that is a mobile first approach to business.
Brilliant.
So it's not thinking about what is our business and how do we then translate it down to mobile, right. But let's look at it from mobile up.
Yeah.
And that's really key. You know, one of the things that we've been thinking about is, you know, when you think about apps, and you think about what Apple and what Google are doing, 100 billion apps were downloaded. I'm looking at my notes here. 100 billion apps have been downloaded worldwide since Apple first launched its app store. That's a huge, huge number. So, what is an app? For all intents and purposes, the app is to the mobile device as the URL is to desktop computing. So to the extent that you can use an app as a means to accomplish whatever your business objective is, you've now taken a business-first approach to implementing a mobile strategy. And you know, there are some great benefits of having an app. You know, it's been well documented that a mobile app, since the coding and the development of an app is predicated on the iOS, the Apple technology operating system, as well as the Android operating system. The coding is different for each, but it allows for a really robust and excellent user experience, which you don't get through a optimized website, which is also known as responsive design or HTML5. There's also, with an app, certain functionality that you just can't get through a optimized website, such as the ability to download content for offline viewing. So with a responsive design website, if I don't have an internet connection, then I'm not getting to that website. That's a challenge, particularly with corporate intranets that are mobile, because if I'm an employee and I don't have an internet connection, I'm not going to be able to access necessarily the content that's part of my company's corporate intranet. But with a native app, it gives you the ability to download content so that when I don't have an internet connection, whether I'm in the airplane or in the subway or in a car and with bad cell service, I can then view and listen to the content that's on the app. Really, from a communication standpoint, the power of the push notification. Mm-hmm. There is something so powerful that when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do, just to get a little personal with you, Karen, the first thing I do in the morning before I brush my teeth is I turn on my telephone because it's my alarm clock.
You do?
I do. And I don't have to talk to anyone, but I turn on my phone, and pretty much every day there are going to be alerts in my device. Push notifications. We all know, when you download an app for the first time, it asks you, do you want to opt in to receive push notifications? Well, if I say yes, I'm going to see this. Now, yeah, there's email, but we know the challenges that exist with email. But that power of the push is so powerful, and it's an opt-in. So someone who is requesting that push notification, they want it. If not, they can, through their settings, they can opt out. So.
Most companies know that things just don't go as planned. I mean, you have the option. You can either hold your collective breath and you try to ride out a situation that isn't working, or to use a famous phrase of yours, Karen, you can try to lead by recalculating. And really, that's a necessity in that 24/7 media world. Karen, what are those steps that we need to take, especially right now here in January, as we try to recalculate and set some new marketing goals for our business?
Well, I like to teach the 5 directions for recalculating, Brian, and I think this is really appropriate to creating a mobile marketing strategy as well as creating any kind of strategy. The first step is to notice that you are off route. So if your mobile marketing strategy isn't how you would like it to be, to simply notice, once you realize that that's the case, to be willing to change direction, to be willing to do things differently, to be willing to take different steps to get to the outcome that you want. And then it's to clarify your destination, and as Jeff had said, really, what is the outcome? What do you want to accomplish? What experience do you want your employees or your customers to have? And that really informs the way that you create your plan going forward. Once you've clarified your destination and what that outcome is to embrace the steering wheel. And this particular step is really moving from that passenger seat to the driver's seat, to use that analogy, to really be ready to go for it, to get ready to put your foot on the gas, and the fifth step is to accelerate. So I think, in those first 4 steps, it's really a case of getting very clear on who you want to service and what experience you want to leave them with. And I really feel like overwhelm is relevant here because, as we said, in a 24/7 media world, things are changing constantly and developing so rapidly. But to be able to take a breath, make a plan that you are willing to change along the way, that you're willing to recalculate along the way, but to have one and perhaps to roll it out in stages, but just to really begin. I think there's a lot of fear associated with change, especially changes on this with this rapidity and of this scale. And I think that to really get with your team and have an open forum of discussion to create what you really think that outcome needs to be for the people you want to service, and at the same time remembering that companies happen to have a lot of human beings in them, and that is the whole point. Is really it's about a personal connection with other people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very, very valuable insight. I also think you mentioned change and the fear of change.
Oh yeah.
It's so true. When we launched our platform back, it was June of 2012. We did it at the National Investor Relations Institute's annual conference in Seattle, Washington. And you want to talk about an industry that is fearful of change, and probably for good reason. The IR industry, public companies, you got legal issues, you have compliance issues, you have all these issues. Why, if it's not broken, why try and fix it? We showcased our platform for the first time, and it was one of those kind of aha moments for the industry. It was a new thing, so that was kind of fun and exciting for the industry. But it was also like, oh yeah, right, this is important. And slowly but surely, as you see, as companies started to see other companies adopt and recognize the power that the mobile device can bring to their in the case of the public company marketplace, their investor relations communications program, it becomes less scary. And we actually did the same thing at the Public Relations Society of America's International Conference this past year in Philadelphia. It was the same experience. And now, we're out there just talking. And I think it's as we all talk about this, it becomes, and when we share ideas and start to talk about solutions that are out there and how one is going about, how one has incorporated something into their communications, it'll become less scary. But the thing that's different today versus back when I started out in this industry, around in the mid-1990s, is things are happening much faster today. Mobile is happening really quickly. When you think about how long it took for corporate websites to become necessary from the time that they actually became commercialized, it took some time. It probably took 5, 6, 7 years. But you think about how fast what's happened in the past 2-3 years. Lord, it's amazing. So we don't have the time. The same as communications professionals, we don't have the same amount of time to figure it out. So
right, but I think though that building on that, a little bit of information goes a long way. And I think that even though things are moving very quickly, it's in a couple of conversations we can really get a lot of knowledge and build some confidence and break through that fear that we're talking about and feel like we have some sense of what's going on and be able to plug into what the trends are and where things are headed.
Agreed.
Karen, I think there's an assumption out there that people who are highly engaged via social media are not the people that are engaging personally. Is that a fair statement?
Well, it's interesting. I heard the German speaker Philip Riedeli speak at a conference last year. Now, this is an 19-year-old who started a video blog at the age of 7 years ago at the age of 13 when the first iPhone, in fact, he had one of the first iPhones in Germany. And he works closely with corporations, and what an inspirational person. But he had done a study where that was the assumption that if you are really plugged in social media and online, you were much less likely to have close relationships, but they found the exact opposite. They found that people who have a very active social media life and are very connected through their mobile devices have much closer relationships with their family and friends and people around them. And I think that is really fascinating and certainly took my breath away. I was shocked by that whole study.
So how do you add, if that's important, then how do you add that personal to a marketing strategy?
Well, I'm a big one for really being yourself. Again, it sounds so basic, but it's something that I think a lot of people in a lot of corporations try to stay away from as much as possible and make things very appropriate, very professional. But I think there are ways to be professional and to be, shall I dare use the A word and say authentic, but to really be able to show some personality and some real life flavor in the way that we are engaging with our customers and with our employees. And I think that is what really stands a company apart, when they are courageous enough to remember that they're dealing with human beings and people with real lives, dealing with real issues on a daily basis with their own health and their own families and the way they're seeing their own lives develop, and be able to cut through that professional, appropriate approach and really add some real life flavor to all kinds of text and posting and connection with through their mobile marketing strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, it takes the impersonal, or it can take the impersonal and take it to a totally different level. I mean, one of the challenges that I face in my business, in my consulting business, is what I believe is the inappropriate use of email, because it's a very easy way to communicate, but in a very impersonal way, as opposed to picking up a telephone and hearing the connotation of the voice, or walking a few blocks to have a face-to-face meeting. Social certainly takes it to a whole new level, and I think that's obviously, from a concern standpoint within organizations, that presents a concern, because it does allow one for a certain level of anonymity, and the ability to say things that maybe would be best communicated differently. But also, when you start to incorporate social into an organization's infrastructure, then you have to consider, how are you going to deal with any negative repercussions.
Mm-hmm. But I really want to jump in where you're discussing, the picking up the phone. It never replaces an email will never replace picking up the phone. Hearing a human being's voice, and I feel very qualified to say that, but that a human being's voice and the way that will affect somebody, it is never going to be replaced by an email or by a tweet. It just isn't. And in the same way that the connection that we are having, as I've got to say it again, through our mobile marketing strategy, and to connect it with large numbers of people, doesn't ever replace that personal one-on-one or one-to-many in-person connection and contact. And what we're trying to do, I think, is to use these strategies to support that the whole time.
Exactly. I mean, again, getting back to mobile and engagement, I was giving a talk at a Business Development Institute's meeting on internal communications, and you think about what can be done to bridge the gap between the personal and the impersonal. So take, for example, the CEO of an organization, 20,000 employees, and he really doesn't have that personal interaction with many of the professionals that are part of the organization. He can wake up in the morning, because of technology today, he can wake up in the morning, he could say, something, I feel so great about myself. I am so lucky I have 10, 20,000 people who are working so hard on behalf of this organization and making us and our investors, if they're public, successful. I want to thank them. And within seconds, what can he do? He could take his mobile device, he could do a selfie, a video selfie, and just say, something, guys, I just want to thank you. and then he can take that file and he can email it to his corporate communications director, who can then shoot it out to all of the employees of the organization, depending upon the mobile platform that they have in place. And all of a sudden, in the matter of a few seconds, every employee, ooh, we're taking a selfie now. Hello. We just took a selfie here. We'll shoot it to you shortly. But no, you think about the ability to, for the CEO to be able to communicate directly and instantaneously with, thousands of people anywhere in the world. It's incredible. So these are tactics that can really be incorporated into a company's communications efforts.
Whether it's in business or your personal life, there's an old saying that a little direction can go a long, long way. And from what you're telling, getting your message out, your brand, your entrepreneurial journey to the masses, it's really now easier than ever. But it's also important, isn't it, to gauge the direction of your marketing techniques. What kind of tips are there for building that successful marketing plan, Karen?
Well, I really think that, I'm going to start talking about things I've already mentioned, but to really get very clear on the outcome. I think we've said it again, but I don't think you can say it too many times. And remembering that we're talking about human beings, to really create that roadmap by breaking it down and having those small steps every day and having very consistent actions for your team to be taking to roll out a plan. I think that when we look at the big picture and we're rolling something out over a long period of time, unless we can remember to take the satellite view and look at this as something that we're implementing with consistent actions over a long period, it can seem a bit of a mountain. And I really think that breaking it down into those smaller actions and making, I think, everybody on the team clear of that vision really goes a long way to help things.
What I'd like to, it's kind of a little off the question that you asked, Brian, but something that I want to make sure that we cover during the session is what are the options, what are the tactics that can be used that are presently available to corporate communications professionals from a mobile perspective. What can you do with a large budget? What can you do with a small budget? So let's talk the large budget first. There are various platforms, Salesforce.com. There are engagement and social collaboration platforms like Yammer and Jive that are out there that are really great platforms that once it's decided that this is the direction you want to go, it can be very, very quick to implement. It can also become somewhat costly, depending upon the size of your workforce. Then there are other solutions where you don't need to, and I guess I will for just a quick moment talk about the theCOMMSapp and our platform, which is it's a one-way push of content to a targeted audience. So it's templated so you can have the benefit of a native app, but at a significantly reduced cost and price. So it depends upon what your goal is and how the target audience expects to receive the content and the information. So if it's a customer, if it's an employee that has the need for a robust and really user-friendly engagement experience, then a native app is going to be the way to go. If it's not as important, it's just a function of getting content into the hands of people, then a responsive design, optimized website is the way to go. You need to keep in mind, though, that while some will call that a mobile app, it's not, because it's not to be found in the App Store or the Google Play. Only a native app would be found in the App Store or the Google Play.
We want to get to questions here from our audience quickly, but Jeff, let me ask you a final question, if I could, please. Right now there's a lot of organizations that have firm-wide email or they've got an internal internet, and yet they still find it challenging to reach and engage employees. In fact, according to Gallup, there's like 70% of employees are either not engaged or are actively disengaged, which can be attributed to the way in which employers communicate with their employees. So how can a mobile strategy help with engagement and complement of these other communication channels?
So a couple of things. First, as I mentioned earlier, when thinking about a mobile strategy, communication strategy, particularly for internal purposes, internal communications purposes, you don't want to do it in a vacuum. You want to find out from your employees what are the challenges they have, what will make their employment experience better. What are the issues that they currently have with if there's an intranet, a corporate intranet, what challenges do they have with it? What problems do they have with it? Why aren't they using it? And how would they like the organization to communicate with them? Intranets, definitely a valuable resource for communicating internally, but there are problems that we've heard out there with corporate intranets, particularly from a mobile experience. And in fact, it's been found that millions of dollars are wasted when employees waste their time having a difficult time interfacing through an intranet, particularly with that's mobile. Also, you get involved with IT and firewall complexities. To the extent that I'm on the road and I don't have an internet connection, or I'm on my iPhone and I have to put in a username and a password, and maybe there's a secondary level of security, I'm just going to avoid it. I'm not going to use it. So, and then you mentioned, Brian, email. Email is obviously not going away. It's a great time-efficient way to communicate with people, but I know what email overload is. I can't wait to clear out my inbox. So I forget your question, and I did digress a bit, but certainly to deal with these issues and to come up with a solution, if you identify those as being problems, then you can figure out a way around them.
And I just want to add to that really asking an employee what they want, there are obviously more effective ways to do that than others, and to really know that you have created a safe enough environment with your employees and with your team that they will actually tell you and will actually tell you the truth about what they need, and that you have created an environment where they can do that without feeling there might be repercussions because you're currently not providing that. And I think that is a really important piece, because there are some workplace environments where an employee might be asked what they need, but really you've got no chance of hearing exactly what it is they do need.
I'm just looking at our screen here, and I see that this is not a shy audience.
I'm so happy.
Me too.
Well, I was just going to ask, are you ready for some questions?
Go for it.
Well, thank you so much for your insightful commentary today to start with here. Thank you. This has been informative and great. Let's field some questions right now that have come in via the web, the social media, and our live audience located in New York City today. And this is your opportunity. Don't be shy. If you want to ask those burning questions, Jeff and Karen are here to answer them. So please, underneath the bottom of your screen of your player, there is a tab that says questions. Click on it, enter in the question that you want, and click submit. And we'll get to as many of them as we can in the next 15 minutes or so. Let's start out. I've got a question here from Sandy on our webcast today, and she wants to know thoughts about QR codes. Are they a must for mobile marketing, and what are other options?
My answer to that would be QR codes give access to what could be something social or mobile. The challenge right now with QR codes is that not everyone is using the scanning technology or has an app on their device that would allow for the scanning of the QR code. That's not to say, however, that it doesn't that it would hurt to have a QR code that would then link to whatever it is that you want to direct someone to. It's definitely relevant. It'll probably become more relevant as the years progress.
I'm really curious to see if it does, because there was a point maybe about 18 months, 2 years ago, where I thought QR codes were going to be the standard and be as well known as a Twitter symbol and like something that every company and every business needed to have, and now I'm not so sure.
Yeah, and also, Apple and Google they're certainly driving traffic. They want to drive traffic to their various app stores. So there's clearly, through the technology in the mobile device today, there's ways to get around having to have a QR code. You know, the ability to tap onto a screen, and then that directs you directly to a website or to the App Store or the Google Play. You know, I would say it's a nice to have. It's an add-on, not a necessity or a must-have.
Right.
Again, this is your opportunity. If you have questions for either Jeff or Karen, just click on the Ask a Question button at the bottom of your screen. Type in the box the question you want to ask and click on Submit, and we'll get to as many of those questions as we can. Here's another question from the webcast. What if we don't provide employee devices? Do we still need a mobile strategy?
Yes.
I hope I'm not being insulting, Karen, and saying, never mind. I think the answer is whether or not you're a BYOD compliant or a organization that provides your employees with a mobile device, your employees have a mobile device.
Yes, they do. And they know how to use it, and they're obsessed with it, addicted to it, and you're lucky if they're not on it all the time.
Yeah, and I would recommend, you know, maybe doing some sort of omnibus survey of your employees to find out. You can do it in a very, very nice and professional way to find out, you know, how they are using their mobile device for their work. That might help to drive your decision on whether or not to terminate or figure out a mobile strategy.
I think that if you want to improve the engagement in your company, this needs to be seriously looked at, is my feeling.
Absolutely. Brian,
I believe we've got a question that's come in from our audience in New York City. What type of solutions are available to communicate, engage with a large global audience? Caller, are you there? Nope, that must be from, it might be from a Twitter account here. I'm trying to get all my information straight. Let me ask the question to you again. What type of solutions are available to communicate or engage with a large global audience?
So, you know, you have your traditional means. Email certainly will work, but there's a problem with email communications, and it's something that we've learned in our conversations with enterprise organizations, which is not every employee has an email address. You know, again, you do have intranets. The problem with intranets is that you have a workforce that is not necessarily beholden to a desktop computer or a desk. They're in factories and warehouses, and some companies are making computers available in public areas for the organization, for the employees, but there's a tendency not to want to, during the workday, to have to go and review emails. Right now, you know, a solution like theCOMMSapp is very quick to implement that allows for the pushing of content to every employee with an organization seamlessly and simultaneously. That's really the challenge. It's the ability to push content that gets to everyone at the same time.
It's a little bit like having a handbook that, you know, like the old printed handbook, but it's getting updated on a day-to-day basis.
That's a great point, because, you know, when you think about HR-related materials, if I'm out of the office and I need to know about my insurance coverage, where do I go? Well, I probably don't have it somewhere handy, but this is, you know, through the mobile platform, there are ways now to make that information available. For the sales force, you know, here's a real challenge that exists. So you have a sales force that's out there. They have to carry around presentations. Essentially, they're going from city to city to city with a file cabinet on their back. Well, wouldn't it be nice if they had all of their sales presentations and sales sheets in one place on the mobile device? This is now, it's not even a possibility, it's a reality. So, you know, these are the challenges that in talking to your employees, you'll be able to determine and then address pretty quickly.
Again, if you have a question for either of our guests today, this is the opportunity to do so. We have a little less than 10 minutes to go. You can click on the Ask a Question tab at the bottom of your screen, submit the question you want, and we will follow up and answer as many as we can. On the heels of that last question regarding the global audience, here's a somewhat related question from our webcast audience. In focusing on mobile first, is it best to build sites on responsive design now, or plan to create apps for various phones, which I think could be challenging for a large global workforce?
It's a great question. So maybe I could just, I'll answer the question somewhat indirectly by addressing the pros and the cons of a responsive design web app versus having a native app. So with the responsive design web app, and again, it's not really an app. It's an optimized website because it's not going to be found in the App Store or the Google Play. You're relegated to internet connectivity, so without a good internet connection, you're not getting to the content. One of the positives of that is that it's a simple solution, and it tends not to be expensive. So many web developers today are offering a responsive design, multiple screen solution. So you get a website, but you also get iPhone, iPad, BlackBerry, essentially wherever there's a browser. So they do offer a multi-platform way to accomplish a immediate need. Certainly, it's a great solution for companies that don't require sophisticated features or a robust user experience. The user experience with a responsive design website, it can be, doesn't have to be, but it can be bland. So those are some of the characteristics, some of the issues, as well as positive, reasons for having a web app. With regard to a native app, I mentioned a few before. The ability to download content for offline viewing and listening, the push notification. It tends to offer a much richer and robust user experience. The issue, the stigma associated with native apps is that to get them multi-platform, you're going to be developing for iPhone, iPad, Android, BlackBerry, Windows Phone. This can get expensive unless you can find a more turnkey solution. I'm not going to plug myself again. A more turnkey solution that that can get around the expense. But a lot of organizations that said, I'm going to, because my customer base is so important or my audience is so important, I want to spend the resources to develop an app, a native app that really gives a great user experience. I hope that answers the question.
Here's an interesting question that came in from the webcast audience. Who controls the content on an employee app? When we're talking, I think you need to look at it two ways. There's formal content, and then there's informal content. And that goes into the strategic planning when deciding that you want to have a mobile communication strategy. So for formal content, that's going to be, and it needs to be, the organization that has the app. No one else should be, allowed to tamper with content or to put content out there. Then you have the informal content, which gets you into more of the social engagement platforms like the Yammers and the Jive, where you, as an organization, you make a decision that you want to give employees the ability to engage with one another, to collaborate with one another. If you would like to ask a question, we still have time for one or two more. If you would like to click on the Ask a Question tab at the bottom of your player, submit your question, and Jeff and Karen will be able to respond to it. Going through the questions, I do have an interesting question here for Karen. This came in from Noel, and just wanted to know if you tour in the USA, and if so, do you have a website that you can point him to?
Oh, thank you, Noel. Yes, I do. I'm very easy to find. I'm at thegpsgirl.com and have a group page on Facebook, Twitter, all of the usual suspects, and love to hear from people, especially hearing their GPS stories of where we've traveled together and been lost and recalculated together. And I may have a tour coming up, actually. I don't have that finalized at the moment to give you dates, but I do perform, and I also speak at many conferences and events around the world. So if you connect with me through the site, then we can keep you informed.
We've got time for one, possibly two more questions here. This comes in from the webcast audience. And addressed to either one of you. How does my IT department play a role in developing an app for my company?
My initial response is yikes, because as a communications professional, I find that IT folks, I don't tend to speak the same language as them, which is fine because they play an extremely important role in my organization as well as others. I think that it is necessary to involve IT. Depending upon the solution, to the extent that a mobile strategy is going to require the touching of a corporate network or any sort of security, obviously IT needs to be involved. If there's a way to look for a cloud-based solution that resides independent of the corporate network, then you're certainly still going to want to involve the IT and show them the love and involve them so they can see what it's all about. But hopefully, if it's cloud-based, they'll realize this doesn't touch my network. I don't have to worry about it, and then they'll let you go and do what you want to do as a corporate communications professional, and you can get it done really quick.
Yeah, as a related question, Jeff, another webcast viewer wanted to know if there were any examples of companies that have broken through that barrier between corporate communications and IT.
The examples that I can give are with regard to my own platform and companies that have embraced our solution. So, looking particularly at the public company investor relations industry, there's many Fortune 100 companies that have embraced our platform where they're able to push content to their investors, to upload content and make it available to the public through the App Store and the Google Play. Many times they will involve IT, and IT will participate in the initial discussions and the demonstrations so they can see how the platform works. But they, at the end of the day, the conclusion is that IT doesn't really need to be involved, and that allows for us to work very, very quickly with the investor relations or the corporate communications professional to put into place the mobile platform. The one thing with the investor relations product that we have, again, the question of who is uploading content, well, certainly as a public company, there are restrictions on what can be posted publicly. So the platform that we have the content is populated exclusively by the company, so that so long as the person designated to upload content knows what they're allowed to do or what should be posted, there's no issues. So from a legal compliance standpoint, there's no challenges.
Jeff, Karen, I know we're coming up on the top of the hour here, but we have a couple of more questions that have come in, and if you have a moment or two extra, I'd like to ask those. Rick from our webcast audience wants to know, how important is SMS text marketing to the overall strategy?
Well, what I would say about SMS, the one challenge with SMS is it requires you to have the cell phone number of the person you are looking to communicate with. So there are ways in which you can essentially have blasts, the equivalent, I guess, of blast emails via SMS, via text. So that's another way in which, so long as you have everyone that you want to communicate with cell phone number, then that would be a very, very good strategy to communicate with them. The challenge is going to be getting everyone's cell number and having it all aggregated together in one place.
I don't expect that to really take over as the core marketing strategy of choice. It exists. It can be, and I think it can be an annoying strategy. Am I allowed to speak truthfully? But I really don't think it's going to take over. And in the same way as a QR code is a nice thing to have, and if you've got the information, it can be useful. I certainly don't think it's going to be considered standard practice.
I agree with Karen.
And our last question today comes in from Nate, and he wants to know, what is your prediction for video webinars from the corporation, from the cubicle, from the park, from the garage? He's asking about video communications versus, via CDNs like a Ustream ad-supported channel, or I was thinking in regards to a platform such as OnStream's visual webcaster and a platform like we're viewing the event today.
I think it's the future. I think it's huge. I think you'll be shocked at how much more of that we will see. The number one search engine for anybody under 30 is, of course, well, over 30 is Google, under 30 is YouTube. Video is what that generation knows, has grown up with, lives and breathes, and it is going to continue to build, and I will be shocked if that isn't the case.
I would go so far as to say it's not even in the future, it's here today. It's just the fact that companies aren't necessarily embracing it.
Right.
You can right now, just when you think about the power of the mobile device, it already accepts video. It already has an internet connection. It has audio and conferencing capability. So right now, it can be done through the mobile device. So it's here.
YouTube immediately. It's live. It's streaming. And in 10 years, when that generation is 10 years older and moving up into more executive levels, watch out.
Yeah, and the bandwidth, as bandwidth continues to improve, as the mobile device continues to improve, it's going to become more prevalent. But it's already happening. I mean, companies are already taking what they would otherwise have as a webcast on their website and making it accessible via the mobile device. What's important is to have the platform to host it, and that's where, you know, there are solutions out there that do allow for it now.
Yeah, can I say again, it is not going away.
Well, I'm sorry to say that the time has slipped away from us. Karen, Jeff, it has been an absolute pleasure moderating today's event, and I thank you both.
Oh, one last word from me is that you have reached your destination.
And one last word from me is that it was a pleasure and really exciting for me to sit next to and participate with the GPS girl today.
On behalf of OnStream Media and Compro.biz, I would like to thank the audience for participating today, and of course both of you, Karen Jacobsen, the GPS girl, and Jeff Corbin, founder and chief executive officer of theCOMMSapp. I'm Brian Ketz. Thank you, everyone, and have yourself a wonderful day.